Welcome into Locked On Phillies today. We discuss how concerned we should be about Bryce Harper's elbow injury and the news that we're getting on Monday. We'll break it down on today's Locked On Phillies.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I'm your host, Connor Thomas. Been talking Phillies baseball for what feels like ever over on the radio. Now, through my full first season as your host of Locked On Phillies, I want to thank you for being along the whole way with me. And I also want to thank you for making Locked On Phillies your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And I want to thank BetOnline, who brings you today's episode. It's brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. Now, today, we will do another player review. We're going to bring back a poll question, and off the poll that we haven't done in a while because the Phillies playoff run has been going on. But first and foremost, I want to jump into this because Bryce Harper's elbow injury has begun to take center stage over the next couple of days of the Philadelphia Phillies offseason. If you're not familiar with what's going on with Bryce Harper's elbow injury, let me catch you up to speed. So this season, even prior to having the hand injury that he suffered against the Padres and Blake Snell back in early June, I believe it was the 3rd of June that he was hit in the hand and broke that thumb that ended up requiring surgery. They kept him out for the next month and change. Well, he had an issue with his elbow where he had some nagging pain in the elbow. He was experiencing some issues throwing. They went and they checked it out. They said it was a UCL issue. They gave him a shot for it to see if that would manage the pain. He was out for about, maybe it was about 5 days to a week with the shot. And then he came back and tried some stuff. And they're like, no, he still doesn't feel good enough to throw. And they decided to shut him down throwing for the year because of the elbow. So that was the reason that he DH'd primarily this season, because he was not able to play right field because they didn't trust him to be able to throw with his elbow in the condition that it's in. What we've been hearing is it's been a partial tear of the UCL. We're not sure to what extent. We're not sure what would be required to fix it, but the common thought among the fan base and among reporters and even really among the team, I'll tell you, has been that this, from the beginning, was going to require some type of surgery. And once that shot didn't work to take care of anything back in the middle of the season. So Bryce Harper, slight tear in the UCL or some type of UCL issue. I believe it was listed as a slight tear of the UCL. The elbow restricting him from playing the field. The Philadelphia Phillies are a better team when he's able to play the field, because that means you can move either Kyle Schwarber or Nick Castellanos to designated hitter. Bryce Harper, a better fielder than both of those players. Even though he's not an exceptional fielder, he's better than those two. Don't let Nick Castellanos' wonderful diving catches in the postseason, which were awesome, hide the fact that Harper's the better fielder than Nick Castellanos. And Castellanos is the better fielder than Schwarber. So ideally what your lineup would look like next year, in my opinion, depending on what goes on in the outfield. Well, something interesting about that coming up on Monday, and a player who could potentially join the team. But it would be Harper in right, Marsh in center, Castellanos in left, Schwarber goes to DH. That would be ideal for me for the Philadelphia Phillies outfield. But the only way that happens is Bryce Harper's got to be healthy enough to play the field. And it could mean Tommy John surgery for Bryce Harper. And Tommy John surgery is interesting. Now, we've seen it before, and maybe the best comparison for what Bryce Harper is able to do is the Shohei Ohtani Tommy John injury that he received a couple years ago. Now, he was back swinging the bat, I think maybe it was 4 or 5 months later was when Ohtani was available, but he wasn't available to throw for a while. So he got the surgery in the offseason, came back for part of the year, but wasn't able to really throw like that until a little bit later. So the Ohtani thing is probably the best comparison. Like the downtime for Harper, the time frame we've heard is anything from 4 months to 9 months. 9 months would mean that we're looking at, right now it's mid-November. So that would be mid-December, January, February, March, April, May, June, July, and August. That means he's basically missing the entirety of the 2023 regular season. Would still be back for September, October, but he'd have to find his timing back and everything like that. Wouldn't miss the entirety of 2023, but essentially you'd have to weather the 2023 season without your best player. That's less than ideal. If it's like 4 months, in that he recovers quicker, or it's a minor procedure for Tommy John, well, you'd be looking at middle of November, middle of December, January, February, and March. He could be back by opening day. And maybe that's just DHing. Maybe he's ready to DH by opening day. DH for the first couple of months as he continues to rehab his elbow to get back into throwing shape. And then when you get to like June, he's playing right field again. I don't know, but it's interesting. And there have been a couple questions raised by people. We talked about it this morning on the John Kincaid show over on 97.5, The Fanatic. If you didn't hear it there, the conversation was basically a couple of the guys on the show were worried that we hadn't heard that Bryce Harper had talked to a doctor yet. The season's been over now for coming up on a week. Why hasn't he gone to a specialist? Why hasn't he gotten it squared away? Why haven't we heard an update? Well, the first thing I'll say is Dave Dombrowski hasn't met with the media yet. His end of year press conference is Monday, which is when we're supposed to hear about the status of Bryce Harper's elbow and the status of what his plan is moving forward. It could just be that things have already happened and we're not privy to it because Dave Dombrowski is set to announce it Monday and Bryce Harper's just handling this stuff on his own. It could be that Bryce Harper just wants a rest after the season, doesn't want to go right into surgery and take like a week. And to some people, that might sound weird. Like, why would you rest? Why wouldn't you want it? You're costing yourself games because a week off now, pushing surgery back, would mean a week's worth more of games that he could miss in 2022. Here's what I will say. I trust Bryce Harper's knowledge of his own body. I trust the doctors who have already evaluated Bryce Harper to give him sound advice. I firmly believe that Bryce Harper is too competitive to be in a situation where a doctor would say, yo, you need significant surgery. You're going to be missing a lot of time for your team next year. The quicker you do this, the better. He says, nah, give me like a week. I don't see that as a possibility. So that leaves us with a couple other possibilities. One, he's been told it's not that serious. He's been told that he can go in, get a cleanup procedure, do physical therapy, minor surgery, physical therapy, slight repair of the UCL, not full-on Tommy John surgery, and then you can go ahead and be back and ready for spring training or not spring training, but opening day or just about opening day. Or the other news, which is scary, he could have been told, hey, it's really bad, and a week isn't going to make a difference. You're going to be sat down for about 9 months. We don't know if he'll make it back for 2023 at all. So do what you got to do. Get your time in with your family because the next couple months are going to be rehab from hell. I don't know. Here's what I will say as far as the injury is concerned, because it's something very similar to an injury I suffered playing baseball. Now, I got ripped when I said this on the radio. I'm not at all comparing myself to Bryce Harper. I don't think I'm a player of that caliber. I know things are different at the major league level. I cannot speak to exactly what his elbow injury is. Here's what I'll say. I had a partial tear in the UCL that for me, because I didn't play at a high enough level, it wasn't worth surgery. I rehabbed it a lot over about a 3-month period, 3 to 4 month period. And then I was back throwing, not at 100% comfortability, but enough that I could throw, enough that they were comfortable. I wasn't going to make it worse because I had rehabbed it. And I was just kind of throwing with minor elbow pain for a little bit. But again, I threw like 80, 81. I'm not the athlete that Bryce Harper is. But the reason I bring that up is what I could do really the whole time was swing a bat. And had no issues swinging a bat with that issue, even when I was rehabbing it. And it was not good to use the elbow. They want you to rest it. But if it's minor and push comes to shove, I believe he'll still be able to swing. So short of full-on Tommy John, I think he's going to be able to be back in DH early next season. That would be my guess. But I bring this up to say, well, this is going to be hugely determinant to how the Phillies attack this offseason. Monday, we're going to hear what Bryce Harper's status is, and we're hoping for good news. We all are. But if it's bad, Well, you're looking at a situation where you might need some more outfield help to cover some stuff up while he's gone. You might want to bring in like a temporary DH that won't cost you all that much. You're going to have to figure out how to survive without Bryce Harper if it's bad news. And there's a name we'll talk about on Monday, and you probably have already seen him out of Japan. An interesting outfield option player out of Japan has been posted. We're going to tell you all about Mr. Yoshida, and you're going to get to know the name Yoshida when we talk about him on Monday. Does he factor more into the Phillies' plans if Bryce Harper misses significant time? All that will be decided once Bryce Harper's elbow injury becomes more clear in our view. But we will find out Monday, and that's just a little speculation about how the news Dave Dombrowski is going to give us on Bryce Harper's elbow, how it will affect the offseason and the next season for Phillies prized slugger. So just wanted to go through that so you're prepared. And of course, we will have the latest news on everything on Monday's episode to make sure that we update you on what Dave Dombrowski says about everything, but perhaps most importantly, about Bryce Harper's elbow. So coming up next, we're going to jump back into our player reviews. So we're going to do another one today. And then our final segment, we're going to do, like I said, off the poll. We're going to rip in a poll question for you about some free agents, something just focusing on the shortstop position. And I'm also going to bring up a little bit of something I tweeted out yesterday and some interesting responses I got. A lot of stuff still to come on today's Locked On Phillies. First, though, I want to tell you about my friends over at BetOnline, because BetOnline is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from football to basketball to soccer to esports, everything. They've got it all at betonline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, you can find those at BetOnline as well. They're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline is where the game starts, and we thank BetOnline for sponsoring today's podcast. All right, we're back on our 2022 player reviews. And today we've got an interesting one, perhaps the most interesting character arc, if you will, over the course of the 2022 season. We did the middle infield yesterday with Gene Segura and Bryson Stott, and today we'll head to the other corner. We're going to talk a little Alec Bohm. Now, Alec Bohm had about as rough a start to the season as you can get. He had that night early on in like the first week of the season where he had multiple errors at third base, just absolutely losing it over there. Looked as bad as any major league infielder I've ever seen. And he was caught on camera on NBC Sports Philadelphia saying, "I bleeping hate this place." Wow. Not a good way to ingratiate yourself to the Philadelphia fans. Or is it? We do love honesty in this town. I talked at length about it on the next episode, about how he felt and why he felt that way and everything. But the more important thing that he said was not what he mouthed on the field, but what he said post game. He didn't go, "Oh no, the camera caught me saying something else. I didn't say that." Or, "I don't know, I'm not going to talk to the media." No, he sat there and very mature for his age, being a young player. I mean, he's only just turned 24. Like it's or sorry, 26. I was looking at his debut age, but he was 25 at the time of saying this. As a 25-year-old, it takes incredible maturity to sit there in front of the media, the Philadelphia sports media, and say, "Yeah, I said it. That's on me. It's not true. I expect more of myself, and I know the fan base does too. And I don't hate being here. I got to be better, and I was frustrated in the moment." And the Philadelphia Phillies fans embraced him and gave him a standing ovation the next night at Citizens Bank Park. It's great work by the fans, but a better job by Alec Bohm to just come out and own something that not everybody would have. And from that point forward, well, while the team embraced him, it seemed like Alec Bohm drew confidence from or the team. The team and the fan base embraced him. But Alec Bohm seemed to draw confidence from that. He became a really, really, really good hitting third baseman, and his fielding drastically improved over the course of the 2022 season. And here's what he finished out with. Now, the power numbers still need to show up for Bohm. That's certainly part of the discussion. But he ended up hitting 280, had a solid 13 home runs, the most of his career, 31 walks. So love to see those numbers up a little bit more for him, be a little selective at the plate. But there was a point where he was the best hitter in baseball in like July, where he was like hitting 400 for the month. It was absolutely incredible. Slashing 280, 315, 398 with a 713 OPS, 13 home runs, 24 doubles, easily the most of his career, and 164 hits on the season. With Bryce Harper out, you could argue that outside of JT Realmuto, Alec Bohm was the best pure hitter on this team. And there was a point where even with JT Realmuto, because remember, Realmuto came on strong in the second half of the season, that Bohm was the best overall hitter on this team. He turned into a guy that you can build around at third base for the next couple of years, that you really, really trust. Now, I'll read you his numbers from his 3 seasons in baseball. And this is what worries me about Alec Bohm, right? And we'll talk about the defense in a second. But his rookie year, small sample size, hit 338. 2021, 247. 2022, 280. So a little bit of ping ponging there, a little bouncing back and forth. Now, I think this year was much more the player that Alec Bohm is consistently going to be throughout his career in Philadelphia and in Major League Baseball in general. But there is a little lack of consistency from year to year there. Last year, not 2022, but 2021 was a complete implosion. He ended up getting sent down. The defense was significantly better, and he's improving. He's moving in the right direction. But there's still some things that I worry about. His range is not quite where I'd want to see it from a third baseman, especially one of his height. The power, also not something that you really see from Alec Bohm a lot. You see a 6'5" third baseman, you think, okay, he's going to leave the yard 25, 30 times a year. Hasn't really materialized yet there. Maybe Kevin Long has something that he can continue to work on with him. But with the shift being banned this next year, that whole range thing is going to come very much into question. I think it'll significantly help him if the Phillies go out and get Trey Turner, who's a strong defensive shortstop and can cover the gaps because he's very, very quick, can cover the hole to both his glove side and up the middle. So that should make it easier on Alec Bohm, not having to range to his left as much, but still some work to be done. But the improvements that Alec Bohm made this year and the mental toughness that he showed this year makes me very, very comfortable with him at third base moving forward. It's no longer a question mark. We did a show. I remember doing this ahead of opening day. Who's going to start at third base on opening day? Will it be Alec Bohm? Will it be Bryson Stott? Will it be Johan Camargo? We had those questions. That was asked. Now it's hard to see anybody playing third base for the Philadelphia Phillies besides Alec Bohm. So it was a good season in that regard. And stats-wise, he compiled really good stats. We just ran through it. Defensive-wise, he was much better to the point where he was making some huge plays in that Carolina. In that Cardinals series, the St. Louis Cardinals series, the wild card series, he played better defense than Nolan Arenado, who's the best defensive third baseman maybe in the history of the game. Yeah, 2 games, small sample size, but he made some plays. Arenado missed a big play in that big 9th inning, and it was just one of those situations where Bohm helped his team out. So, yeah, all that considered, a really, really good year for Alec Bohm. And his moment, it's going to be a tough thing to say what Alec Bohm's real moment was. Are we going to call it the diving catch against the St. Louis Cardinals? We could. But you know what? It's going to go back to the beginning for me. The biggest moment of Alec Bohm's year was the I bleeping hate this place called on camera because he put himself in a major crossroads. You could either come back the way he did, an improbable comeback where you battle into being clearly the best third baseman on the team, one of the better ones in baseball, put together a great year, make yourself a fan favorite, or he could have collapsed and the fan base could have ran him out of town. We've seen him do it to many, many players in this city across all sports. So the I bleeping hate this place was the biggest moment of the year for Alec Bohm, and he handled it incredibly well, more than I could have ever imagined or any of us really could. I'm going to give him a B+ for his 2022 season performance. So Alec Bohm goes home with a B+ and a really quality 2022 campaign that we hope he can build upon going into 2023. Now, coming up, we're going to have an Off the Poll question. If you're not familiar with Off the Poll, it's a segment where we post a poll question on Twitter. I'll give you the question now, and then on Monday's episode, We will recap the answers, and I will tell you my thoughts. I'm not going to share them before because I don't like to bias you as the listener and responder to the Twitter poll with what I say. I don't want everyone voting for or voting against for how I feel. I want you to vote how you feel. So we will give you the question coming up as we wrap up today's Locked On Phillies. Okay, it's time for Off the Poll. So you get the play on words, right? Off the poll. It's a poll question. I love getting your feedback. Haven't done one of these in a minute. So check out the poll at LO_Phillies on Twitter. If you're watching on YouTube, you see my handle right there at Connor Thomas 975. You can go ahead and find the poll there as well. I always retweet it from my own personal Twitter account. And today's Twitter poll. Okay. Who of the top 4 shortstops are you most interested in the Philadelphia Phillies signing? Bear with me on this because I think we know who all is going to run away with this poll because there's a darling in Philadelphia. But I'm still interested to see how the other guys stack up, how big of a gap there is between them, and who's the second, third, fourth option because I talked about this multiple times this week. So, of the top 4 shortstops out on the market, who would you most be interested in the Philadelphia Phillies signing? And I want you to consider all things: salary, potential salary, age, the ability to field, where they fit into the lineup, the fit with the team. All of this stuff needs to be considered. So it's not just who's the better shortstop, who fits best here in Philadelphia, who would you most want to see the Philadelphia Phillies sign? And of course, the names are Trey Turner, Carlos Correa, Dansby Swanson, and Xander Bogaerts. And you know what? I'm just going to put them in alphabetical order for the sake of not putting anybody first or whatever like that. I think we know who's going to run away with it. But again, I'm interested in the secondary data too of who ends up where. So we will discuss that on Monday's episode of Locked On Phillies once you vote on that poll over the weekend. And we'll also talk a little bit more Bryce Harper's elbow. We're going to talk about Mr. Yoshida out of Japan, a potential outfield option for the Phillies and how he fits into their plans. So a lot of fun stuff coming up on Monday's episode. But that's all for today's Locked On Phillies. I want to thank you for making Locked On Phillies your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Locked On Sports Today, the biggest breaking news in all of sports. They've got it over on Locked On Sports Today. It's available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. The biggest news of what's going on. NFL, NBA, NHL, all cooking right now. So if you want the big news in those leagues, go ahead and check it out. And they've got the best information for you available anywhere on a daily podcast called Locked On Sports Today. Again, go give them a listen. And I appreciate you rating, reviewing, subscribing everywhere, where you get your podcast, YouTube, all of that for Locked On Phillies. Follow us on Twitter at LO_Phillies. Follow me at Connor Thomas 975, all that good stuff. So you don't miss a single bit of our offseason content here on Locked On Phillies. And I will talk to you all on Monday.